Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 5 of Mayfair Witches. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had the opening with Suzanne, and she's helping kind of be like a... God, what's that word I'm trying to think of? Kind of like a midwife, but there's like a specific word for it. I don't think that's necessarily what she is, but nevertheless, she's helping this woman give birth to a child, but the problem is, the moment the child came out, the child had kind of webbed fingers, kind of like webbing like kind of between the fingers, and the father sees this as like, oh, you were giving my wife all these like concoctions and stuff when she was pregnant. You're the reason why our child ended up this way. This is not my son. Then at the same time, a witch finder shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, so, which I'm curious, did Ireland kind of go through its own, I'm curious, like, generally speaking, when the witch hunts kind of all took place, like the Salem witch trials and stuff like that, how much of that happened internationally, like outside of the U.S., I'm curious. But yeah, like, because this also plays into what I think might be a storyline in this show, was what I was curious about, is like, oh, is there going to be witch hunters in this universe? Because if you have witches, they're most likely going to be people who are hunting them. And obviously, there might be an old order, kind of like almost like a Templar type of order that exists that's been hunting witches for centuries type of situation. So the fact is they introduced a witch hunter this episode, and that father was already kind of like eyeing Suzanne like, oh, this guy's speaking all this witchcraft stuff. Because I believe, and I could be mistaken, that's one of the ladies that Suzanne was dancing with her mother's, you know, kind of like after her mother's passing and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, this woman, she had like, was kind of, when he kind of was saying like she had lacerations and stuff, but they were healing. So once again, it's hard to say whether that's 100% true or not. Maybe it is, but, you know, at that point in time, it's kind of irrelevant whether you actually were a witch or not, because even if you weren't a witch, you were suspected of being a witch, you might as well be a witch. So that's definitely going to be interesting. I wonder, have the witches had to, like, I'm sure they had to hide out throughout the centuries, just because it's like, yeah, never letting like them getting hunted and prosecuted again. I mean, that might be once again why the Mayfairs are here in the U.S. in the first place, is because like maybe Suzanne had to run from the ants. Once again, we learned little bit about the lineage, and the lineage went back about 300 years. I don't remember them. I think they specified what time that Suzanne storyline is taking place, and so I was wondering, because like the earliest one of the Mayfairs, it was a different name. It wasn't Suzanne. So that's why I'm like, did she come to the U.S. and did she immigrate to the U.S. or kind of fled to the U.S. and ended up hiding here? And maybe she still was a part of like the early Salem witch trials and stuff. But maybe like, yeah, obviously like she was kind of like, I think she might still be like the first or the mother of the Mayfairs type of situation. Maybe. That's why I still feel like that's going. But either way, the whole situation, the main crux of the episode revolves around Rowan and Cyprian being stuck in this kind of perpetual loop. Now, I thought that was interesting at first, because I was like, okay, they're laying in bed. I was like, all right, at first I was like, oh, that's got to be Lasher, like messing with him. I was like, the last time we saw, like, at least part of the house was on fire. So I was like, okay. And then the moment because I thought the entire time, at first I was like, oh God, it's going to be Lasher. But the moment we started making breakfast and we saw the wound on his side, I was like, okay, so it really is Cyprian, but he's caught up in this spell as well. And they're kind of looping, like they're just spending all this time in bed. And part of me wonders, the fact is he did that. Well, for one, because as time is going on, Cyprian's laying there dying from this wound. But part of me wonders, like, is he, because we know he can get inside of Rowan's head, but maybe he wants that information to be more forthcoming. And I guess it's like, in his mind, it's like, no, I'm giving you what you want. You wanted him, and I gave you him. So it's a thing of like, she wanted Rowan to enjoy, like the whole, like, yeah, it's almost, I think Lasher even looks at it like this. It's like, yeah, he's your like mortal desires, but it's like, yeah, he's immortal, and this is what you desire, this is what you want, but really, you're meant to be with me. So I'm gonna give you him because he's the appetizer. I'm the rest of your life type of thing. Very presumptuous, but it's kind of how Lasher rose from what we know. So, but it's because I thought like maybe he was trying to because the entire time they're bonding and telling stories about themselves. Obviously, it's like, right, her love life situation versus his love life situation, and how neither one of them's hasn't always had the best circumstances when it comes to their love lives. And so I thought Lasher was like, rather than getting inside her head, getting her to forthcome all this information, why don't I get her to kind of get comfortable and want to tell him everything, and that way I learn things by osmosis. It is interesting that the people who end up being kind of closest to her, in this case, Lasher and Cyprian, are people who can, in a sense, get inside of her head. It is kind of a complicated and interesting dynamic that she kind of finds herself in. But eventually, she's able to break the control. I think the name of this episode's Thrall, so it's like kind of the spell, the thrall that Lasher has her under, was able to kind of finally break it when she noticed the wound. It's like, wait, what's going on? Wait, I came here to Carlotta's after the funeral. Where is she? And then they're both remembering, and luckily, like, it doesn't take away from like his powers or anything, because he was able to touch the knife. Carlotta was trying to kill you, but I got in the way, so she stabbed me. It's like, we got to get out of this house. Every door is locked. It's magically sealed. No breaking your way out. And just to mess with her even more, later on, he had Cyprian pop up and like, hey, no, you must have bumped your head. I was like, the moment I was like, that's Lasher messing with you. And then later on, like the moment he was serving her like the coffee or whatever, I noticed, I was like, where's your gloves, motherfucker? And that's the first thing she noticed too. And he was like, smile, and vanished. So, because Cyprian realizes like, right, Lasher's making me stay here because he wants me to die here, because he ends up finding a guy named Stuart Townsend who was part of the Talamasca. He's the one that ended up being in charge of Antha. And I guess, I wonder, it's sad that history is repeating itself, that people charged with protecting the Mayfairs end up being the ones who fall in love with them. I don't know if everyone has been like that, or is it just specifically like a history repeating with Cyprian, and, you know, repeating everything with Stuart. Which obviously I think of Charmed, you know, it's like, right, a white lighter falling in love with their charge type of situation, so. But it's like, Stuart tells him, it's like, you fell in love with her, huh? You shouldn't have done that. He doesn't like that. He's like, you cannot die. Do not die in this house. If you're going to, he was basically like, you want to die anywhere but this house, because he's a spirit trapped here in this constant loop over and over again. This is where you'll stay. And once again, who knows? Like, that's the only other ghost we saw per se. But then later on, Rowan ran into Carlotta's sister as she was rocking back and forth in the water. She's like, where's Carlotta? I can't hang on. I was like, wait, are you what I think you are? I knew it. Because I kept pointing this out last episode. Every scene with Carlotta's other sister, every time, this one that's not Antha, Deidre's mom, the one that isn't her, but every time you saw that sister, it was only in scenes with Carlotta. Even when Rowan was there, she wasn't there. That's what I was like, it's so weird that only and I said like, oh, it's kind of like a Sixth Sense kind of twisted thing. I fucking knew it, dude. And she's vanishing because Carlotta's the only, like, Carlotta's her bound, like her anchor to this world, I think. Either Carlotta, like, bound her to her, so it's like, right, the fact that she was vanishing is because Carlotta was dying. So it's like, right, the moment Carlotta dies, she disappears too, because Carlotta's the only thing holding her here. So she's haunting this place, but at least, like, Stuart's spirit is trapped here. Maybe you can't see them on a regular basis, but maybe because Cyprian was in the process of dying, maybe that's why he could see Stuart. Or maybe it's because they were very specifically trapped in this, like, repeating cycle thing that made it so that, maybe because they were kind of in a very similar, like, world with what Lasher set up. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But Rowan ends up accepting Lasher because it's the only way she can get Cyprian out of here, keep him safe, because she cares about him. It's the first, like, deep connection she's had in a long time. It's like, the fact is that being able to open up to someone like that who can literally, like, I mean, figuratively and literally, being so open with him, being able to literally get inside your head, and he's helped her understand so much about herself that obviously Deirdre was never able to explain to her, and obviously Ellie died knowing the truth but never telling her any of that. So, but Lasher's telling her like, yeah, I know all your desires. I know what you want. You could leave, but you actually don't want. It's like, oh, I know what you want. You want cake. She's like, I'm not a 6-year-old. But he's like, yeah, but there's no embarrassment in that, because I think for her, it is a thing of she wants it all. She wants to like know who she really is. That I think have been able to celebrate her life of like her biological mom. That had probably both her moms in her life, both Ellie, to have known what she really was and who she really was, and have this family that isn't complicated, just to be able to hold on to like that natural, like that aspect of life, just even the simplicity of being able to have like a not six, I was about to, she references that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the cake and stuff is for like a 6-year-old her, but it's like, yeah, just being able to have those kid things of like, yeah, I just want a birthday cake to just be inside my family home with my family, and not have my mom's aunt try and kill me, my great aunt try and kill me. So, but Lasher shows her Carlotta, because he has every reason to want to kill Carlotta. Because I was wondering, like, okay, so how are we dealing with this fire thing? I guess he put out the fire because he's getting close to Rowan, because they are bound to each other. He has more of a foothold in this world, so I guess he's the one that like just naturally put the fire out. And so I was like, hey, here's Carlotta. It's like, no, I'm not doing this. You want her dead. It's like, but I don't want that. So her other great aunt was reluctant to work with, because it's like, you are bound by him. You can't do what Antha did, which I was like, what was that? I was like, are you saying Antha wasn't bound to him, so whatever she did is beyond what Rowan is possible of doing? And then I was like, well, it seems like you're kind of implying it's like, well, Antha killed herself. It's like, is that where we're going down that route? Well, unalived herself. So I was curious, like, how that was going to play out. She was supposed to go downstairs to get some like herbs or something, but she got locked inside downstairs, tripped over the lady that Carlotta sacrificed, the one that was supposed to look after Deirdre. It's like, and even Lasher points out, it's like, yeah, like this is another thing that's by Carlotta. It's like, well, you did it, yes, but also Carlotta did put the net, but it's like, that was 100% you. That wasn't Carlotta, that was you. But in his mind, he definitely made sure to leave out some of those details of like, yeah, Carlotta did this. It's like, no, you did that. But it's more so to once again turn Rowan more against Carlotta. So in that moment, like Rowan was able to open the door with her power, but she's like, no, that was just you making me think. Like, it's hard when you have someone who can literally make you see anything and be anyone. Once again, it seems like he specifically is able to do that specifically to the people he's bound to. I don't know if like, cause every other time, like, maybe that's just his choice. How he normally looks is how he presents himself to other people. Like, that's the form like, how we see Lasher is how, like, Carlotta would see him, or Cortland. So I'm like, is that just how he chooses to represent himself around them? Or is it just he can only kind of hide and have the other faces when he's around the people, the women that he's bound to? So... But it's like, right, let Carlotta go. I don't want her to die, despite everything that she's done. Let her go to jail for what she did to Deirdre, like what she did to Cyprian. Just let her go to jail and die in jail for it. And Carlotta's like, don't worry, I can lead you out of here. It's like, don't trust that lady. And then it's like, yeah, taking her to the balcony, like, she's gonna push you, isn't she? But it's like, okay, now this is how you save yourself. Because like, Rowan's like, how do I get down? It's like, oh no, following your grandmother's footsteps. But then it becomes clear, it's like, Antha didn't fall. She, you pushed her. Cause we did see at one point in time, like, Cyprian, when he first, like, touched the Mayfair gates and, like, in, like, the first episode, we saw, like, something where, like, Lasher was looking up at a body, I think, that was hanging, I think. I don't know if that was supposed to be Antha back then, or what that was, or whether that's someone else that, but... Yeah, Carlotta, because once again, that juxtaposition of like, she's so religious at witches. I mean, once again, I don't know. I'm not well versed enough in the world of witches. I mean, because it also depends on what canon you're pulling from, because witches and everything were tied to Lucifer and like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So that's why I thought it was kind of an interesting oxymoron that she's like, not oxymoron, but it just seems so contradictory. Like, oh, you'd be like this. I mean, well, I guess I'd also have to take that back because it's like, well, like witches believe in like, I mean, once again, depending on the storyline, like worship goddesses and stuff like that. So it's, but it seems so weird that she's like kind of Christian in that regard, but also she is a Mayfair that doesn't have powers necessary, which also makes you go, how did the whole thing with her sister happen then? Maybe it's just like her sister is bound to this house, and so Carlotta having control of it. Well, because the whole thing was always Deidre, so I don't know how. Once again, well, it also depends, like, because I don't remember if like what her sister looked like all those years ago when Deirdre was pregnant with Rowan. Because if she looks about the same, then that must mean she was dead even back then. But it might be a thing of she died in between that time, in between like Rowan being born and like, I don't know. But Rowan was like, I'm not going to let you do to me like you did Antha. And she ended up killing Carlotta, which Lasher's kind of happy about. It's just like, but he's going to justify, but no, it was because of your free will. It's like, yes, yeah, her quote unquote free will, when you've manipulated and pushed her and trapped her, like you pushed the conditions to be this, but it's like, yeah, because you want to mold her into who you believe to be who she is, but it's like, no, you mold her into what you want her to be. Because also, he wanted her dead. He wanted Carlotta to pay for what she did to Antha, to what she did to Deirdre, because we still don't know who it is that killed Deirdre. Maybe, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's Carlotta, because it feels like that would have come up, if that was the case. So, there's still more to that we haven't really settled. Plus, the Talmasca was kind of telling Cyprian to kind of let that go. So there's something there. Not unless someone from the Talmasca is covering their tracks, they have some connection in all of this. Which, speaking of the Talmasca, luckily Cyprian was taken back home where his sister was there. Now his sister, like, he was like, I got stabbed at the Mayfair house. She's like, why were you at that house? So I was like, wait, do you know what's going on? But it's like, no, he later on had to explain the Talmasca to her. So it's like, oh, so you don't know about the magic stuff, but you just know, like, generally there are rumors around about the Mayfair house. Like, yo, that place is shady. Because she had no idea Rowan was Mayfair. She just knew, like, oh, you're the lady I randomly found in my brother's place. That's about it. But also him telling his sister, like, you have to hide, because if you make a sound, no matter what you hear or see, do not say anything, do not come out, or you're going to make more trouble for me. Because I guess it's like, right, no one outside of this world is supposed to know about all of this, so I guess it's like he would have been in bigger trouble. Maybe he would have gotten kicked out, memory wiped of everything type of situation. But his boss, as well as a healer, kind of come in, and the wound isn't like a regular just dagger wound, and I guess it makes sense. Carlotta probably used a more mystical element, because it's like, right, got to make sure you're not able to heal from this. I have to make sure you die from this. So it's an enchanted wound. So the lady, I thought, was kind of interesting. It's like, right, she's pulling out all the bad magic, and she ends up, I thought, like, at first I was like, wait, so you're absorbing the magic, and she ended up absorbing the wound, and she like ends up grabbing the knife and like pulling it out of herself because it's there underneath her skin. I was like, that's interesting how that manifests like that, because like that's why the wound's like infected and not healing. You can't heal it by normal means because it's a magical wound. So she literally took all the bad magic onto herself and then pulled it out. And by pulling it out, she was able to kind of like remove it's basically a curse on him. And now the wound can actually heal, no scar and everything. So he ends up filling his sister in about the Talamasca. And she's like, wow, I knew you're part of some secret agency. Like, I thought FBI, CIA, was not expecting something more magical based. But it's like, yeah, you can't tell anybody because bound to secrecy. Also, so it isn't like a my lips are sealed type of thing. If you've ever seen or played The Wolf Among Us, you'll know what I mean about the whole my lips are sealed thing. So it's not that brutal, but it's like if the Talamasca finds out that you've been running your mouth to normies about this, then that's going to be a problem. So, but Cyprian isn't willing to let Rowan go, so he wants to make sure she's okay, which she managed to escape the house. That's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see, is she going to end up telling Cyprian what she did, regardless of it being, now it's like that thing of, she accidentally killed someone before she didn't kill one person. Now she's killed her aunt, great aunt, despite everything, like her attempts not to, because she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She just couldn't control her abilities before, and now it was accidental, but also kind of on purpose. But it's like, once again, it's just because of Lasher's manipulation, because he's trying to like isolate her and make her feel like, right, all you have in this world is me. I'm the only one that's going to be there for you, who truly understands you like no other. It's like, that doesn't mean as much when you've kind of, it's effed up to say, but you kind of ran through the bloodline. You've been here for so long. What you're trying to get out of this, once again, Cortland saying that line of, yeah, it's the 13th witch, because I guess she's the 13th generation in this family. And so it's like, right, with her, the moment it's going to be complete, like the 13th witch, and stuff like that will mean that it's kind of maybe like the witching hour and you can finally come to this world. I wonder, do they say the whole thing of like, oh, you're his because it's just because you put the necklace on and you've kind of surrendered to him somewhat? Or is that kind of implied more like, oh, you're, because the guy that Deidre hooked up with, like, obviously Lasher set that up, but it's like, right, I need Deidre to, like, have the next generation ready for me because he needs the 13th witch. Because couldn't go to Corlata. Once again, we don't know if Corlata's other sister was still alive at that point in time, and even if she was never going to submit, and the last one that did submit, Antha, I say submit, but the one he was able to get to ended up, getting killed by Corlata. Corlata ended up drugging Deirdre to keep him sealed away, and was going to kill Rowan just to make sure, because I guess if Rowan died, maybe that averts everything, because it's like, right, like I wonder, would he have to start all over again? Well, because also, like, Rowan has no kids, so it would end with her. But I'm wondering, like, if she died, would it stop everything because he needs specifically the 13th? Or let's say, like, for example, Rowan had a kid and that kid would be the 14th. Would it roll back over and be like, all right, so I have to wait. After Rowan's kid, I would have to wait 12 more generations or something like that before we can get back to the 13th? Or is it like a one and done? And once you miss this opportunity, you're screwed. So maybe it's specifically like a deal that was made of like, yeah, you can, the whatever's binding you will break on the 13th. Like kind of like Lucifer's seals in Supernatural. It's like there's 666 seals, only 66 need to be broken. I'm curious the ins and outs of that, so. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next episode. Especially because, like, next time Cyprian's sister sees you, she's not going to be too accepting of Rowan. Maybe she's going to turn to Cortland, but Cortland is one of the people who push you more towards Lasher, and is that going to make you not want to really fuck with that side of your family anymore? You've also got Cyprian who can read your mind, so any, like, you're always going to want him wearing gloves around you because he can never, like, ever touch you, because he'll probably find out the truth if she decides not to tell him. Maybe she's scared that the one person she's able to kind of really connect with, that's destroyed now, because I can never let you, like, get too close to me with, like, especially your gloves off, because I don't want you to see the truth, and especially because you've opened my eyes, you helped me through so much. So that's what also complicates their bond, because it's like, right, she's like, they're latching on to each other because, like, yeah, he's been inside your head, and it adds a level of intimacy with the fact is he's also the one kind of leading you through this world, kind of opening your eyes once again to who you are and what you really are. So we'll have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.